Ever feel like you could use an extra pair of hands? Or maybe like a whole team of assistants working for you 24/7. And no, I'm not talking about just like, fetching coffee, but like actually tackling those complex problems, the ones that take up way too much brain space.
We're talking about getting things done before you even realize they need doing.
Exactly. Like having a team of mind readers, but instead of minds, they're AI agents. And get this, NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, well, he thinks they're closer than we might think.
And the really fascinating part is this isn't just, like a software upgrade or something. It's a totally different way of even thinking about how we interact with technology.
That's like technology going from a trusty sidekick to like this whole team of superpowered collaborators.
So tell me more about what Han calls this agentic future. What is that exactly? So imagine this. Picture AI not just as a tool, right, but as something that has its own set of skills. Like, think about the difference between using a calculator app on your phone.
Which I do, like 100 times a day.
Sure. But now imagine having an AI that actually understands your finances, can make investment decisions, negotiates your bills, manages it all.
Okay, so it's like having a personal finance guru, but instead of charging outrageous fees, it's like built into my computer. That does sound a lot better than my current budgeting spreadsheet situation. But how does this even work? Are we talking like millions of lines of code for every single task?
Not quite. It's way more interesting than that. See, these AI agents, there would be millions of them, each with their own specialties. Some would be amazing at designing marketing campaigns, while others could, well, even write code, believe it or not. And here's the real kicker. They wouldn't just be working in isolation, like in their own little silos.
Oh, wait, so they'd be like collaborating with each other, like bouncing ideas back and forth.
Exactly. Imagine you're trying to, let's say, build a website, right?
Something I've definitely tried to do and failed miserably at, by the way.
Well, instead of battling with all that code yourself, you'd just tell an AI agent what you wanted, and it would basically act as a project manager, delegating tasks to these other specialized agents, ones that are great at web design, others that are wordsmiths for the content, even ones that handle all that SEO stuff. And all of this is happening in the background.
So it's like having a whole team of AI experts at my beck and call. Sign me up.
But hold on, you mentioned something earlier, unsupervised and reinforcement learning. What exactly is that? It sounds kind of like that hands-off parenting approach, but for AI.
That's actually a pretty good analogy. Think of it like this. Imagine an AI that's learning to play chess, right? But instead of studying all the classic human games, it just plays millions and millions of games against itself.
And it just learns from each win and loss, so it's constantly getting better.
Exactly. It's figuring things out on its own without someone explicitly telling it what to do. That's essentially unsupervised learning in a nutshell.
So we basically throw it in the deep end and hope it learns how to swim. Bold strategy.
And it works. Remember AlphaGo, that AI that managed to beat the world champion Go player? Yeah, that was huge. It felt like AI had finally cracked the code, so to speak.
And it did it by playing countless games against itself, constantly learning and adapting its strategy. Now imagine that kind of learning applied to, well, pretty much anything, medicine, engineering, even art.
Okay, now I'm really starting to see the potential here.
Yeah.
But how does an AI go from, crushing it at Go to understanding that I need a website redesign? How does it even begin to grasp human language, like our weird slang and stuff?
That's where the magic of large language models comes in. We usually just call them LLMs. Think of them as the brains behind these AI agents, allowing them to understand and actually generate human-like text, which is, kind of essential for communication.
So instead of just spitting out ones and zeros, they can actually hold a conversation and, understand what we're asking for.
Exactly. And not just respond. They can get pretty creative with it, too. Like, they can write poems, code, even music. But there's an even more impressive layer to this. LLMs give agents a sense of memory, of context.
So they remember past conversations, maybe even learn my preferences over time.
Precisely. The more they interact with us, the more data they gather, the more they learn and adapt. They're like learning machines constantly evolving.
Okay, that's seriously impressive.
No.
But how quickly are we talking about this tech evolving? Is it something we need to be concerned about right now, or is it still, way off in the future?
Well, that's the thing. It's evolving at a pace that makes even Moore's law look slow.
Okay, for those of us who might need a little refresher course, what exactly is Moore's law again?
So Moore's law, it's basically this observation that the number of transistors that can fit on a microchip, they tend to double every 2 years or so. And for decades, this has been the driving force behind, how much more powerful our computers have gotten.
Right, like our phones today have more power than those massive computers they used to have,
Yeah.
taking up entire rooms.
Exactly. But here's the thing, AI, especially the advancements in these specialized chips like GPUs, they're happening even faster. We're talking about computing power doubling every 6 months in some cases.
So Moore's law, it's like the old reliable benchmark, but this is like warp speed, right?
It really is. And it's that incredible speed that's fueling this whole explosion of AI development.
Mhm.
These agents are getting smarter, more capable, like every single day.
Okay, so we're not talking about some distant sci-fi future here. This agentic future, it's right around the corner.
You could say it's already unfolding around us. And you know what's really interesting? One of the most mind-blowing, maybe even a little unnerving parts of this whole thing is the idea that AI could eventually write its own software.
Okay, yeah, that's a thought. What happens to all the human programmers out there when AI can code itself? Do we all just, like, retire early?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? That's where Huang's predictions get really wild. He seems to think that eventually, yeah, AI will be writing all the software, and it all comes down to this concept of, model weights.
Model weights.
Uh,
Sounds ominous.
Not really, but they're kind of important. Think of them as like the core building blocks of an AI model. So if you think of code as the language of, traditional software model weights, that's the language of AI.
And what Huang is saying is that AI will just be able to create its own model weights, basically build new AI without us humans having to do anything.
You got it. It's a whole other level. Instead of lines of code, that we can at least kind of pretend to understand, it's AI systems built on something totally different, something we might not even fully grasp.
That is kind of unnerving when you put it like that. So we're talking about like creating something that we don't even fully understand how to create. That's a lot to process.
And it brings up so many questions, right? What happens to our understanding of technology when it goes beyond, our ability to even build it? How do we control it? How do we even make sure that these AI-created systems are actually, like, on our side, aligned with what we want?
Yeah, we don't want to accidentally unleash some like super intelligent AI that doesn't share our values. It's like, be careful what you wish for,
Yeah.
right? But seriously, is it all doom and gloom for the programmers of the world?
I wouldn't say that. Even if, and it's still a big if, but even if AI gets to the point where it's writing most of the software, there's still a vital role for humans. At least, for the foreseeable future. We're not obsolete just yet.
Okay, good to know. So what does that look like? If AI is writing the code, what are we doing?
Think about it. AI might be able to generate code like lightning fast. But who decides what that code should do? What are the goals? The ethics behind it? That's where we come in. We set the parameters, make sure it's used for the right reasons.
So it's like, we're the managers, and the AI is the super efficient worker bee. We're still calling the shots, but they're doing the heavy lifting.
It's more nuanced than that, but you've hit on a key point. Human judgment, our values, that's not something AI can replicate, at least not yet. We need to make sure it's used ethically, responsibly. And that takes, critical thinking. We have to stay ahead of the game.
It's like, we're not just building AI, we're shaping the future together. But how do we make sure that AI isn't just capable, but also responsible? How do we avoid unintended consequences, those oops moments that could have huge ripple effects?
That's the big question, right? And it leads us to this fascinating development in the world of AI, chain of thought processing. Basically, it's all about making AI more thoughtful, more human-like in the way it reasons things out.
Chain of thought process. Okay, I'm listening. Are we talking about like tiny AI brains having ethical debates?
Well, not exactly, but imagine this. When you're faced with like a tough decision, you don't just go with the first solution that pops into your head, right? You weigh the options, maybe talk it through, think about the consequences.
Oh, I'm definitely guilty of having full-blown conversations with myself when I'm trying to decide something.
We all do, and that's what chain of thought processing is trying to mimic in AI. Instead of just spitting out an answer, these agents are being designed to actually evaluate their own responses, to think through the steps, just like a human would.
So it's like giving them a conscience, that little voice in their digital head saying, hold on a minute, is this the right call?
It's a good way to think about it, and the implications are huge. This kind of reflective AI has the potential to not only be more accurate, more reliable, but also, more ethical. It could help us avoid those unintended consequences, those oops moments, and actually steer AI towards being a force for good.
So we're talking about AI that doesn't just answer the question, but also thinks about why it's answering that way. It's like AI with a sense of responsibility.
That's a really good way to put it. It's about making AI more self-aware, more like us in how it approaches these complex situations.
Which is, let's be honest, kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it.
It really is, and it's what makes this whole conversation about the agentic future so exciting.
It's like we're on the verge of this whole new era, not just in technology, but in how we understand our own intelligence. I mean, we've spent so much time, worried about AI replacing us.
Mm.
What if, and I know this might sound crazy, but what if it actually helps us unlock our potential? Like, what if instead of replacing us, it makes us even better?
It's definitely a possibility, and one worth working towards. But it won't just happen magically, right? It takes effort, careful consideration. We need to make sure we're guiding the development of AI in the right direction.
So it's not a spectator sport. It's about actively shaping how this technology evolves.
100%. This future, this agentic future, it's not predetermined. Every decision we make, every interaction we have with this technology, it all plays a role.
So, for everyone listening out there, the takeaway here is,
The future is unwritten. It's a work in progress, and we're all contributing to it.
and maybe, just maybe, it's even more incredible than we can imagine.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. A huge thank you to our expert for, well, being an expert and for breaking down this complex topic with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been a fascinating conversation.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of AI agents. Until next time, keep those minds curious, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.